and other mass gatherings in anticipation of upcoming high-profile international events that the United States will be hosting. I now recognize myself for an opening statement. I'd like to welcome everyone to this inaugural hearing of the bipartisan House Committee on Homeland Security's Task Force on Enhancing Security for Special Events in the United States. In the coming decade, the United States will host millions of international travelers for several major national and international special events, including the FIFA World Cup, the celebration of the United States' 250th birthday in 2026, and the Los Angeles Summer Olympics of 2028. Though these events present an opportunity to showcase everything that makes America great, we cannot forget that our adversaries and other violent extremists will view these events as targets for inflicting mass casualties and generating fear. To that end, I am honored to chair the task force and lead the committee's efforts in investigating and conducting oversight of the security needs of these major national and international events. Our goal is to develop and advance legislative solutions that will enhance our preparedness and security posture against all threats. And I look forward to working with the ranking member of the task force, Ms. Nellie Poe of New Jersey, and with all the members assigned to this task force to empower state and local law enforcement and other first responders to carry out their missions. As we prepare to secure the major events ahead, this task force must begin by learning from past failures, both here and abroad. In the United States, we've seen deadly attacks at mass gatherings, the 1996 Olympic bombing in Atlanta, and the 2025 New Year's Day attack in New Orleans. Abroad, the 1972 Munich Olympics, which are still emblazoned in my mind, saw terrorists murder 11 Israeli athletes after exploiting security gaps. In addition, in 2015, ISIS launched coordinated attacks across Paris, killing 130. These tragedies make clear the cost of complacency, and we owe it to the American people to confront these lessons and ensure we don't repeat them. This hearing is a first step. Today's historic focus will lead us to discuss and consider, like the instance of vehicular terrorism on January 1st of this year in New Orleans, the crowd security breach at the Copa America final game at the Miami Hard Rock Stadium last year, and the Kansas City parade shooting early last year. We will also discuss the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing, which occurred during my tenure as chairman of this committee. And Commissioner Davis, it's great to see you again. We worked well together in our oversight and investigating the activities following that tragedy to find a constructive outcome so that something like that couldn't happen again. So we look forward to hearing from our witnesses on these challenges, what we can do better. More importantly, we want to know what more Congress and the federal government can do to strengthen security ahead of these major events. One clear lesson from the past attacks is the need for strong intelligence sharing. Our state and local law enforcement rely on timely information from the federal intelligence community, especially our fusion centers. With rising tensions in the Middle East and the threat of Iran-backed actors operating inside the United States, raising awareness and coordination is critical to stopping potential attacks before they happen. Earlier this month, Congress passed and the President signed into law supplemental funding for the World Cup and the Los Angeles Olympics, which will be used in part to enhance information sharing. That same information sharing is critical in stopping human trafficking, which we see, unfortunately, all too well at these events. With millions of international visitors expected, criminal networks will look to exploit. We also face a growing threat from drones. According to the NFL, there were over 2,800 drone incursions at stadiums during the 2023 season, a 4,000% increase from just 5 years prior. With minimal skill, bad actors can use these drones to launch attacks or create chaos. Yet most state and local agencies lack the authority to respond. We need to equip federal agencies so they can help the state agencies and close the gap to make these events safe. We have lots of work to do ahead of these events. I hope this hearing is a strong first step to ensure the incidents we discussed today will never happen again, and that the United States remains a global leader in providing safe and secure experiences for citizens and visitors alike. And with that, I now recognize the ranking member of the task force, Ms. Poe, for her opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon to you, sir. I am so very pleased to be leading our bipartisan task force with you today for our first hearing. Before I start, I want to express my deepest sympathy to the victims of the attack in Los Angeles over the weekend. I pray for everyone's recovery. This tragedy, which injured more than 30 people, demonstrates how important it is for law enforcement to have plans in place to prevent, mitigate, and respond to threats, including threats that may arise outside of venues. This task force has a deeply important mission as our country prepares to host some of the world's largest gatherings and celebration over the next 3 years. Events like the 250th anniversary of America's founding, the 78 matches of the 2026 FIFA World Cup, and the 2028 Olympic and Paralympic Games will put American hospitality on display for the world to see. I'm so excited that the final match of the 2026 World Cup will be held in Bergen County in my district. And our fan festival will be right down the road at the Liberty State Park. Congress and the executive branch must be ready to roll out the red carpet and ensure that our state, local, tribal, and territorial partners have the resources they need to ensure the safety, security, and success of these mass gatherings. As we go forward, we must keep in mind that it's not just stadiums and parking lots we need to protect. It's fan festivals, entertainment districts, bars, gathering spaces where people will be gathering to celebrate. I want to thank our witnesses for testifying. Each of you has an important perspective on lessons learned as we examine past security incidents at mass gathering events. At the 2013 Boston Marathon, terrorists detonated homemade bombs. 3 died and over 500 were injured. In February 2024, the Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl and the city turned out for a massive celebration and parade. Sadly, after the parade, 2 men began arguing and shot at each other. Within minutes, more shots were fired and 1 person was killed and more than 20 people were injured. During the 2024 Copa America Finals in Florida, thousands of fans without tickets crashed the gate, jumped the barriers, and entered the stadium, bypassing security and police. And we all were devastated this year when a terrorist rented a pickup truck and ramped through a crowd on Bourbon Street, killing 14 people and injuring dozens. Our committee traveled to New Orleans to hear directly from those involved in the response. Today's witnesses are law enforcement officers who face these tragic events, and they are here to help us apply the lessons they've learned to the hundreds of mass gathering events that will unfold over the next 3 years. But we also want to take a look forward and hear about what state, local, tribals, and territorial partners need from us to prepare for the America 250 celebrations, the 2026 FIFA World Cup, and the 2028 Olympic and Paralympic Games. Two of our witnesses today will play leading roles in the securing FIFA World Cup matches next year. Before closing, I want to just point out that while our cities prepare for these amazing, wonderful celebrations of sports and global fellowship, I think it's important for me to share that, unfortunately, the administration has cut, frozen, or slowed disbursement of DHS and FEMA grants to help city address terrorism as well as regional preparedness. Cities and state needed that money absolutely now, yesterday. I hope to hear from our witnesses how grants like the State Homeland Security Program and urban area security initiatives keep Americans safe at mass gathering events. I am also worried that the administration's treatment of immigrants have sent a message to the world that you're not welcome here. Tourism is already down across the country, and our state and local economies are suffering. If the administration's visa policies keep people from traveling to the United States for the World Cup or Olympics, our communities will indeed suffer. That's really bad policy and bad economics. Mr. Chairman, I truly look forward to working with you to make sure that our communities and law enforcement get everything that they need and that they are able to get that soon. I would also, Mr. Chairman, would ask a unanimous consent that the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Carter, be permitted to sit with the task force and question today's witnesses.
And without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With that, I yield back.
I think the ranking member, Poe, and other members of the task force are reminded that opening statements may be submitted for the record. I'm pleased to have such an important panel of witnesses before us today and ask the witnesses please rise and raise their right hands. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give before the Committee on Homeland Security of the United States House of Representatives will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. Thank you. And please be seated. Let the record reflect the witnesses have answered in the affirmative. We have several witnesses. First, Sheriff Rosie Cordero-Stutz serves as the sheriff for Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office since her election on January 7th, 2025. Sheriff Cordero-Stutz has dedicated over 29 years to law enforcement profession. Second, Mr. Ed Davis, President and CEO of the Edward Davis Company. Don't want to put you on the spot. He's been in law enforcement for 35 years, served as a police commissioner of the city of Boston from December 2006 until October 2013. Mr. Davis led the highly successful response to the Boston Marathon bombing. The second month I was sworn in as chairman of this committee, and it's quite an honor, sir, to see you back in the same hearing room where we, I think, working together, accomplished a great deal to make this country safer. Thank you, sir. Colonel Robert Hodges is superintendent for the Louisiana State Police. On January 8th, 2024, he was appointed as the 27th superintendent of the Louisiana State Police. He has 30 years with the Louisiana State Police and previously served as an intelligence officer in the Louisiana Army National Guard Reserve. And to our last witness, I would like to yield to Emmanuel Cleaver to introduce the witness from his great state of Missouri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Poe. It is a pleasure for me to introduce our illustrious police chief. Chief Stacy Graves, a lifelong resident of Kansas City, Missouri, began her career at the KCPD in 1997 as a civilian records clerk. After joining the police academy in December of 1997, she had multiple assignments as a police officer, including various divisions of that department. She has unique credentials to assume this position. On December 15th, 2022, 25 years after starting her police career at the academy, she was selected to be the police chief of Kansas City, Missouri. At age 48, Graves became the 48th police chief in Kansas City, Missouri's 148-year history. It's a pleasure for me to present my police chief of Kansas City, Missouri, including the Super Bowl-bound Kansas City Chiefs, Chief Graves.
That's very well done. Thank you. I now recognize Sheriff Cordero-Stutz for 5 minutes to summarize her opening statement.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman McCall, Ranking Member Poe, and members of the House Homeland Security Task Force on Special Events. I would also like to acknowledge the representative of my hometown, Congressman Carlos Jimenez. Congressman, it's always nice to see you. Thank you for the opportunity to address this task force and provide a detailed analysis of the lessons learned from Copa America and the ways in which we have reassessed and put into motion advanced safety protocols in preparation for future high-profile events such as FIFA 2026. While it is appropriate to recognize and celebrate the accomplishments of the event, it is equally incumbent upon us to acknowledge the inherent challenges we encountered during Copa America. Foremost, among the lessons learned is the critical importance of meticulous early-stage planning, including comprehensive scenario-based drills. Equally vital is the development of robust mitigation strategies that prioritize crowd dynamics, layered security perimeters, agile deployment forces, event-based intelligence gathering, and seamless interagency collaboration at the local, national, and international levels. During Copa America, stadium personnel, alongside members of the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office, faced considerable operational challenges stemming from a large influx of individuals at the stadium premises. The crowd demonstrated persistent attempts to breach established security measures in an effort to gain entry. The existing single-gate entry system was inadequate for efficiently managing the volume of attendees. Notably, many individuals present did not possess tickets, but still attempted to access the sold-out event. Due to the density of people at entry points, it was difficult for deputies, security staff, and other law enforcement agencies to accurately distinguish ticketed guests from those without tickets, and no procedures were in place for the removal of unauthorized individuals. To address these challenges, a three-tiered entry protocol has since been adopted to ensure early identification and preemptive removal of individuals without valid credentials, thereby alleviating pressure at main entry points. Each tier features a screening process that mandates attendees to present valid admission tickets. This approach enables the effective identification and removal of individuals without tickets prior to their arrival at the main gate. Further security enhancements include reinforced barriers and specialized fencing within the inner perimeter, providing an additional layer of deterrence against unauthorized access. Staffing at each checkpoint has been increased, with both private security personnel and MDSO staff deployed to ensure the efficient management of large crowds. The strategic placement of specially trained deputies throughout the stadium has proven effective in overseeing large and potentially volatile crowds. These officers serve as a significant deterrent and are prepared to effectively manage complex scenarios. During recent FIFA Club World Cup events, Rapid Deployment Force, or RDF, personnel were assigned to critical areas, successfully addressing unruly spectators and ensuring comprehensive security around the stadium perimeter. The initial event preparations involved gathering baseline data. However, this information proved insufficient for supplying stakeholders with actionable insight. As a result, an enhanced methodology has been implemented, incorporating crowd behavior monitoring, social media analysis, and threat identification. This comprehensive approach empowers key stakeholders to make timely and well-informed decisions. At this time, I would like to present an overview of the strategies and safety protocols being implemented and evaluated in preparation for the future high-level event particularly FIFA 2026. For example, the adoption of an integrated communication systems is essential. Real-time synchronized communication among all stakeholders, including law enforcement, emergency response services, event organizers, and local authorities, ensures seamless information flow and coordinated responses. Additionally, transparent communication with the public is crucial for fostering trust and encouraging compliance with safety protocols. Empowering qualified volunteers and personnel through comprehensive training programs is also a key priority. Regular drills and scenario-based exercises equip staff with the necessary skills to respond swiftly and effectively to emergencies, suspicious activities, and guest assistance needs. It is equally important to ensure that venues and communications are accessible to all individuals, including those with disabilities and from diverse cultural backgrounds. Employing multilingual law enforcement agents, both overt and covert, further supports effective crowd management and engagement. A healthy budget is fundamental to ensuring the highest level of safety at major events. Adequate funding is required for additional deputies, overtime, and investment in advanced technologies, which will enable rapid response capabilities and reinforce MDSO's commitment to safety. The establishment of centralized command centers throughout the venues is critical for the coordination of resources, information sharing, and decision-making during the large-scale events. Command centers serve as operational hubs, enabling authorities to monitor situations in real time and deploy resources where needed most efficiently. Community engagement and an educational outreach prior to high-level events are also vital to the overall efforts. Information campaigns through op-ed pieces, videos, and other media will educate both locals and guests about safety protocols, emergency procedures, and available resources, enhancing the preparedness and promoting a culture of safety throughout the host community and beyond. Before closing, I would like to underscore one final point. The Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office is committed to public safety. And while we recognize and appreciate the partnership between event organizers, vendors, and sponsors for large community events, their operational costs and projected revenues should not override or minimize the importance of public safety considerations. MDSO maintains sole authority over personnel deployment and resource allocation for these large-scale events. In conclusion, the World Cup served as a pivotal event, offering valuable insight, experiences, and lessons learned. A thorough analysis of areas for enhancement has strengthened MDSO's approach to safety and security for forthcoming major events. By embracing technology advancement, fostering interagency cooperation, and implementing a comprehensive training program, we remain committed to the ensuring of a secure and successful, exceptional experience for all the participants of FIFA 2026. We should move forward with collective responsibility and vigilance to ensure that FIFA and other international events hosted by Miami-Dade County exemplify both the celebration of the achievement and the higher standards of safety, unity, and resilience. I thank you for your attention, and I'm available to answer any questions or receive recommendations.
Thank you, Sheriff. I now recognize Mr. Davis for 5 minutes for his opening statement.
Chairman McCall, Ranking Member Poe, and distinguished members of the task force, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to testify at today's hearing and to contribute to this important discussion with these distinguished police leaders on how the lessons learned in the 12 years since the Boston Marathon bombings can help drive meaningful security advancements as the United States prepares for a series of major upcoming special events, including the FIFA World Cup and the 2028 Olympic and Paralympic Games. It is critical that we apply those lessons to strengthen our collective preparedness, incorporating advancements in intelligence and technology, enhancing interagency coordination, and ensuring the safety of all who participate. The tragic events of the 2013 Boston Marathon, a terrorist bombing that claimed the lives of Lou Lindsay, Crystal Campbell, and Martin Richard, Officer Sean Collier, and Dennis Simmons, and left hundreds injured and maimed, forever changed the city of Boston. The response to the attack demonstrated that effective preparedness depends not only on planning, but also on seamless collaboration and the critical importance of intelligence, cooperation across all levels of law enforcement agencies and first responders. This integrated effort was instrumental in the successful identification and apprehension of the suspects The Boston Regional Intelligence Fusion Center, the BRIC, served as a central hub for intelligence gathering during and after the attack. As one of the intelligence sharing nodes established by the Department of Homeland Security, the BRIC underscored the value of integrated intelligence operations and led to broader national investments in fusion center capabilities. This highlighted their role as force multipliers in complex emergencies by breaking down agency silos, but actively seeking out what is unknown through cooperative efforts across jurisdictions. Equally important is how that information is communicated, as intelligence is only as effective as the clarity, content, and timeliness with which it is received. This mindset starts with leadership. The tone set by the boss matters because what their leaders say, the officers respond to. BRIC's intelligence response was swift in Boston. It allowed us to capture the terrorists in 4 days' time. Another tool exemplifying the benefits of integrated coordination is the Department of Homeland Security Special Event Assessment, or SEER rating. SEER ratings are voluntarily submitted for special events, which are sent to DHS Office of Operations Coordination by state, local, and federal officials for an overall risk assessment. This intelligence is critical for on-the-ground security planning and resources. The SEER rating is currently effective, but needs prioritization as the United States prepares to host upcoming global events such as the World Cup and the Olympic Games. As I previously testified to this committee, during the Boston Marathon, the overwhelming number of phone calls, texts, and internet searches rendered voice communications practically useless for everyone, including the police officers on the scene and those responding. Local and federal law enforcement were impeded, and change was critically important. The goal of the group named FirstNet is to provide law enforcement and first responders with the ability to access a highly secure and completely reliable service network during times when commercial service becomes overwhelmed, exactly when it is needed most. This system works. The partnership works for first responders. Another aspect of technology has seen significant improvement is AI capabilities for video and photo surveillance. This is both good and bad, Mr. Chairman. The AI abilities of the police to analyze this data, which took us days in the Boston Marathon situation, has been greatly improved. So those days are now hours instead. But AI also presents a challenge of deep fakes and other issues where the malicious actors can use this information to sow unrest and lack of trust in these events. This is one of the main priorities I think we need to face at this time. As was published in a white paper that I helped pen for the National Institute of Justice's Harvard Executive Session on Policing and Public Safety in March of 2014, the Boston Police Department successfully used Twitter to establish a two-way dialogue with the public about the status of investigations, to calm nerves and request assistance, to correct mistaken information reported by the press, and to ask for restraint from the public tweeting of information from police scanners. This demonstrated the level of trust and interaction that the department and community can attain online. Cyber attacks have emerged as a sophisticated and escalating threat to major sporting events. A conversation with Kathy Lanier, recently the head of security for the NFL, indicates that cyber is high on her list of priorities as these events continue on. As technology evolves, one of the main threats I see out there is first-person view drones. My company works at stadiums across the country helping secure. First-person view drones are an increasing concern at major public venues. The biggest innovation in warfare in decades, FPV drones represent a transformative shift in how aerial threats are deployed, blending low-cost accessibility with high-impact potential. Unlike conventional GPS-stabilized drones, FPV drones are manually piloted, maneuverable, and capable of streaming real-time video to operators. They make it incredibly difficult to thwart these efforts. Although several promising technologies exist, including jamming systems that can intercept and disable drones, these technologies are expensive and not readily available outside. The colonel is on the cutting edge of this technology. I'll let him continue the conversation about the drones. As the United States prepares to host a series of events, the threat landscape has evolved significantly. Extremist-driven acts of violence, foreign influence operations, and ideologically motivated terrorists, both domestic and international, have surged across the country. In closing, while advancements have created a better environment for law enforcement and agencies to respond to crime, the risk of danger and sacrifice that police throughout our nation face should not be underestimated. As new technology becomes available to law enforcement, it becomes available to criminals and terrorists. New threats, both physical and cyber, emerge daily, especially those related to drone technology and advancement. Police will continue to adapt and overcome, but it is critical to ensure a coordinated effort for detection and avoidance is in place. I want to extend my gratitude to our law enforcement and intelligence community partners for their unwavering commitment to protecting our nation. And I thank you and this task force for the opportunity to reflect on the hard-won lessons since the Boston Marathon tragedy 12 years ago, and to consider how we can apply them moving forward. As the United States prepares to take center stage by hosting these events, we have a unique opportunity to demonstrate leadership, resilience, and innovation in public safety on a global scale.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. I now recognize Colonel Hodges for 5 minutes for his opening statement.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Poe, distinguished task force members. I'm Colonel Robert Hodges, Superintendent of Louisiana State Police. I was born and raised in New Orleans and have served as a trooper for the last 30 years. I've held a variety of positions in both patrol and investigations, culminating to my appointment in January of 2024. I'm here today to provide an overview of how Louisiana navigated extraordinary public safety challenges in early 2025, ranging from a terrorist attack to inclement weather. The testimony reflects not only what we've endured, but what we've achieved through resilience and partnership. On New Year's Day 2025, just after 3 a.m., a vehicle bypassed police barricades and plowed into pedestrians on Bourbon Street in the city of New Orleans. 14 lives were tragically lost and dozens others were injured. This was not a tragic accident. It was confirmed by federal partners as a terrorist attack. LSP troopers and first responders immediately rendered aid and secured the scene. Due to a long-standing partnership with the Homeland Security investigations, FBI, ATF, and New Orleans Police Department, LSP initially took complete control of the scene, allowing a rapid stabilization while federal teams mobilized to begin their investigation. Agencies across multiple states worked together to identify and locate other potential suspects. In the wake of the attack, and with the Sugar Bowl just hours away, public safety priorities immediately shifted. LSP and partners implemented an expanded security plan and delayed the college football playoff game by just 1 day, demonstrating the strength of interagency coordination and our shared commitment to public safety. As preparations began for Super Bowl 59, Louisiana was struck by a historic snowstorm, which brought over 12 inches to New Orleans and southeast Louisiana, closing all of the major interstate thoroughfares. The city was effectively paralyzed, and roadways were iced, access routes shut down, and emergency services stretched to the limit. Nonetheless, LSP troopers continued operations, conducting rescues, securing roads, and pressing forward with Super Bowl preparations. On February 9, 2025, Super Bowl 59 went forward without incident. More than 500 LSP troopers and DPS officers and over 300 Louisiana National Guard members were deployed, including the French Quarter Enhanced Security Zone. The operation demonstrated the effectiveness of planning, discipline, and community coordination. Immediately afterward, our attention turned to Mardi Gras. Enhanced safety protocols remained in place throughout the state. Over 150 troopers and DPS personnel were deployed for the carnival season to ensure secure, accessible celebrations. In conclusion, during that 3-month span, Louisiana overcame a terrorist attack, a paralyzing snowstorm, and multiple high-risk public events. These experiences tested our infrastructure, systems, resolve, but they also reinforced our readiness, our colleagues, our unity, and our mission focus. Through these events, we confirmed the need for several critical resources from the Department of Homeland Security, including the Special Event Threat Assessment, or SEER, and TFR, our temporary flight restrictions, along with UAS mitigation and funding for training and equipment. Once Super Bowl 59 was approved as a Tier 1, the deployment of over 100 explosive K-9 detection teams significantly increased our ability to provide pre-event sweeps of large venues throughout the week of Super Bowl. Furthermore, the allowance of the TFR expansion and UAS mitigation efforts enabled LSP to collaborate with local, other state, and federal partners to ensure a drone mitigation teams collectively. This team identified over 250 violations and intercepted over 80 pilots violating the TFR restrictions. The Tier 1 classification, as Commissioner Davis talked about earlier, also opened funding resources for training and equipment, including additional robotic and X-ray devices for explosive detection and other tactical enhancements. The challenges we faced were unprecedented, but the lessons learned will shape our path forward. As we say in our department, it's one team, one dream, and one Louisiana. Thank you for this opportunity, and I welcome your questions.
I recognize Chief Graves for 5 minutes for her opening statement.
Chairman McCall, Ranking Member Poe, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I also thank my Congressman Cleaver for the wonderful introduction. My name is Stacey Graves, and I am proud to serve as the Chief of Police for the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. Our department is steadfast in its commitment to delivering a safe and successful World Cup experience for participants and fans, drawing on valuable lessons learned from past incidents and embracing innovative strategies in resource management and collaboration. The department stands ready to meet unprecedented challenges that lie ahead. The opportunity to host the World Cup is not only a testament to our city's vibrant spirit, but also an occasion to showcase Kansas City, Missouri on the global stage. Full-time dedicated planning for this event started in January of 2024. Since then, the police department has dedicated even more full-time staff members in planning for all aspects of the upcoming World Cup FIFA 2026. Regional coordination has been key in planning, beginning with 6 planning committees comprised of various public safety leaders, as well as non-governmental organizations. Planning committees are focused on issues ranging from intelligence analysis and sharing, interoperability, command, control, and coordination, critical infrastructure protection, and tactical coordination, just to name a few. Given our city's many championships, we've experienced large-scale events. These learning opportunities involve crowd management, public communication, critical infrastructure protection, and advanced incident command system training. Full-scale exercises and tabletop exercises have been executed and continue to be planned as we test and retest our plans and readiness. One incident in particular guides our planning and execution of large-scale events like the World Cup. On February 14th of 2024, a tragic shooting occurred during the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl 58 celebration parade and rally. Despite careful planning and the implementation of lessons learned from previous large-scale events, an act of violence disrupted what was intended to be a joyous occasion for Kansas City. The incident resulted in significant harm and cast a somber tone over the day, underscoring the unpredictable nature of such open-air public events and the critical importance of coordinated emergency response and planning. The swift actions of first responders and mutual aid personnel, whose roles had been expanded based on prior experience, played a vital role in mitigating further harm and provided aid to those impacted at the scene. This tragedy stands as a solemn reminder of the ever-present need for vigilance and preparedness in planning for mass gatherings. In Kansas City, we understand what is needed to ensure we are prepared for an event like World Cup FIFA 2026, which will arrive in 11 American cities in less than a year. As we draw near to this exciting and massive event, we have 2 key areas of concern. The first is funding. To date, the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department has not received any federal funding toward the planning and preparation for the 2026 World Cup. We've submitted a budget request for personnel costs and equipment to the KC 2026 World Cup Planning Committee, which was then used in a comprehensive Kansas City regional budget submission to the federal government. We are ever so grateful for the One Big Beautiful Bill providing $625 million for planning and security costs relating to the 2026 FIFA World Cup host cities. It's our understanding that funding will be allocated amongst host committees based on their budget estimates submitted as part of the $625 million and will follow the general structure of the state Homeland Security grant program in the form of separate grants for each host city committee. However, we are still awaiting guidance on the timing, program, restrictions, and application for this grant. I also am aware that this has just been passed. Some of this is changing day by day, and it's progressing very quickly. So thank you so much for that. This puts host cities in a compressed timeline to procure equipment, train members for usage, and deploy the equipment in time for FIFA. We respectfully request Congress to consider the following regarding the funding process. We respectfully urge the parties to work quickly to finalize the funding execution process to secure the necessary equipment and resources identified in the host committee budget estimates. The second primary concern is detection and counter UAS authority. Despite our responsibility to safeguard the public, the local law enforcement agencies are currently constrained by federal regulations that prohibit or severely limit our ability to detect, disrupt, or disable unauthorized drones in real time. This creates significant operational gap that hinders our capacity to respond effectively to aerial threats. The proliferation of consumer drones, their affordability, and their potential use by bad actors amplifies this concern. At times, our officers are put in the position of observing potentially dangerous drone activity without the legal authority or technical tools to mitigate the threat. This not only endangers the safety of event attendees and infrastructure, but also undermines public confidence in our ability to provide a safe environment. We respectfully request Congress to prioritize the following. Authorize the deployment of unmanned aerial systems, UAS detection, and counter UAS technology at local and regional levels. To current FAA BVLOS, or Beyond Visual Line of Sight waivers without visual observers, are limited to 200 feet above ground level, while standard UAV operations allow up to 400 feet AGL. This restriction hampers our ability to monitor and secure wide areas, particularly around stadiums and large venues. For events like FIFA World Cup, authorization for BVLOS operations at 400 feet AGL is essential. Ensure federal UAS teams are embedded at each World Cup host sites to provide airspace security. Without these changes, the increasing use of drones, whether by careless hobbyists or bad actors, will continue to outpace the ability of local law enforcement to respond. We stand ready to collaborate with federal partners to close this critical gap in public safety. American law enforcement officers are invested in the safety and betterment of our country. We are the first responders to violence and terrorism in our city and stand ready to keep people safe from all threats every day. We look forward to working together to ensure the 2026 FIFA World Cup events hosted in American cities are safe and secure. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify today, and I stand ready to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief Graves. I recognize myself for questions. Commissioner Davis, it's great to see you again. It's hard to imagine. It's been 12 years since you testified before this very committee after the tragic events of the Boston bombing. I want to thank you for both yours and law enforcement's heroism and the first responders in saving lives that day. We ran an investigation. I remember walking down Boylston Street in Boston with you. And then we found several disturbing facts. Information was not shared. The Russian report, FSB, that Tamerlan had traveled overseas, radicalized, came back, was never brought to your attention, even though you had two officers on the Joint Terrorism Task Force. The travel that he made to Dagestan to radicalize was never communicated with you, sir, even though you had two officers on the Joint Terrorism Task Force. Then, to make things worse, the DHS and the FBI, using Post-it notes, were not connecting the dots on the travel, and on and on. And I remember asking you the question, would this have changed things if you had known about this? And you, of course, said yes, and we would have monitored the suspect. And unfortunately, you didn't have that opportunity at that time. I think since then, we made a lot of progress within the JTTFs, with an MOU that requires the sharing of the information with the state and locals. Can you speak to lessons learned from this tragic experience that we went through, and how is it better today? And one final point on you talked about AI and how that can now play a huge factor in these investigations.
I remember meeting with Director Muller, who had good intentions on establishing the Joint Terrorism Task Force. And there was supposed to be complete sharing across that organization. But some of the mid-level managers in there kind of pushed back against that. And I think that really was what impeded a really effective preventive measure being put in place. So, as you said, with your help and the help of Congress and the Senate, we were able to change the rules there. And that's not an easy thing to do. And I feel very happy that we had that impact across the nation. It's working today. My partner from the FBI was Rick Delorier. He was a tremendous asset to what we were doing. But organizations can sometimes be difficult. So stressing the cooperation and coordination and the equal treatment of all aspects of law enforcement, federal, state, and local, so everyone's at the table and able to share their little piece of information through the fusion centers and the BRICS can make all the difference in the world. Artificial intelligence is extremely dangerous. The benefit hopefully will outweigh the danger as we put things in place to determine what's legitimate and not legitimate online. But the incredible gains that have been made in going through reams and reams of video and photographs, which is what we did in the time following the incident, which actually led to the capture of these two guys, has improved vastly. The impediment right now is coming to a compromise with privacy rights experts and advocates and weighing that cost-benefit analysis between public safety and people's privacy and making sure we have a reasoned out and effective balance of the two. And I think that still needs work. Those are the two things I'd mention.
And I'm glad you had cameras. Otherwise, we never could have identified the subjects. And I know there was some dispute about the traffic lights having access to that as well. On the issue of UAVs, I know that in 2013, the same year as the Boston bombing, you also tracked a team that were threatening to bomb the Pentagon with UAVs. And I think to Mr. Davis, Colonel Hodges, and Chief Graves, all three of you have referenced to UAVs. I see this, we've had vehicles, we've had bombs. In my view, this is probably the greatest emerging threat now to these games. We saw how effective drones were in the Ukraine response to the Russians, how cheap and inexpensive they are. Yet it's very difficult to detect and to counter those measures. Mr. Davis, you wouldn't mind commenting on your experience, and Colonel Hodges and Chief Graves?
Sure. Briefly, the success in the Ukraine and other countries of using these devices on the battlefield is front and center in the minds of malign actors who cause harm or want to cause harm here. So it's vitally important that we pay attention to this and we coordinate a federal, state, and local response. Chief Graves mentioned that the ability to work on these issues by local police is critical. And there's been a lot of talk about it right now. There was a presidential order, executive order that came out recently that moved the ball down the field a little bit, but more needs to be done. There has to be a full partnership there. And the latest technology has to be employed, both electronic jamming techniques and also actual use of kinetic force against these things to protect the people who are in these stadiums. I cannot imagine if there's an attack from the air, what will happen to the crowd in an event like this.
Yeah. Colonel Hodges?
So we saw much success in Louisiana, specifically New Orleans. Just like your field intelligence teams working together, like the commissioner said, that's what we did for our drone team, to detect, identify, and mitigate those drones throughout the special events. Most of the upcoming national events that are across the country are going to be outdoor, and that's the biggest concern with the drones. And having a member from the local police, the state police, sheriff's office, and the federal entities together to collaborate, just having the availability or the the authorization to mitigate, which is to disable or return the drone back to the controller, is not enough. You have to coordinate with the partners. And we did that to ensure that we did not take down another public safety agency's drone who were in fact doing the same as we did. So as we move forward, because drones are more accessible, because they have a capability for a higher payload and can remain in the air, the flight time is significantly longer. It's a unique challenge for all of law enforcement to maintain a temporary flight restriction. So to detect those within that TFR, even though they're up for various things throughout the year, when those special events take place simultaneously across the country, we must have that collaboration that I think we showed through those special events, both Sugar Bowl, New Year's Day, Super Bowl, and in our carnival season.
It was a great example of being successful. Chief Graves.
Kansas City, Missouri Police Department is no stranger to drones. We've been utilizing drones for different purposes for 10 to 12 years, everything from crime scene capturing to investigating traffic accidents to making entry with some of our SWAT teams. We are in the stages now of launching our Drones as First Responders program, and I've already taken shipment of those drones. But even still, the authority for local law enforcement, who are usually on the ground handling any kind of an incident right in real time, needs that authority, that not only the authority, but also the technology to down drones. You know, we are there in various different situations. Obviously, you know, if you could use the Chiefs Parade in that situation, you know, there was a lot of drones going over in the air, but at that point we had a lot of our federal agencies. I will say that in Kansas City, we have a wonderful historical relationship with all of our federal partners, but even still, there are times when local law enforcement is experiencing an issue, sees a threat, and doesn't have the authority or the equipment to address that threat in real time.
And many times it's coming from, you know, you're on the ground, you're the line of defense, and we need that two-way street of information. I think this is something this task force will be looking at, is the authorities given to state and locals to work with the feds on UAVs.
I think also the problem is the availability. I mean, I don't know if you'd say it's availability, but they're inexpensive. Anyone can access them. And even here recently, I observed one that's used for agriculture, that you can fly over a field with pesticides. Those types of situations where you can just buy something like that online, you know, just having that local law enforcement authority to mitigate that threat in real time is really what's needed. I know that's been a topic of conversation here recently, and I just encourage you to continue that conversation and help us.
I agree, thank you. Chair recognizes the ranking member, Ms. Poe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, thank you to all the witnesses that are providing testimony. Chief Graves, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate your time and willingness to share insight on how we can better support our state and local partners and prepare our communities with high-profile events like the FIFA World Cup. Your testimony is especially important given the continuing toll of gun violence and the mass shootings in our country. What should have been a joyful event turned tragic when an argument escalated into gunfire during the celebration of the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl victory. Sadly, one person was killed and at least 20 others were injured, including 8 children. The timeline in the after-action report shows just how quickly a situation can escalate and become deadly. Gun violence remains a persistent threat that law enforcement must plan for among all other threats we have heard about today. According to the Gun Violence Archives, there have already been at least 231 mass shootings in the United States this year, resulting in 175 deaths and over 1,000 injuries. We must do all that we can to protect fans, athletes, innocent bystanders, especially children, from this ongoing threat during our major public events. Chief Graves, from your experience, how do firearms affect our police plan for security at mass gathering events? And what did your department learn from the parade shooting about the presence of firearm in the crowds?
As we plan for all situations, obviously localized gun violence is one of those. You know, when you look at these mass gatherings, we're looking at lone attacks, we're looking at coordinated terrorist attacks, but also localized gun violence. And on that day, on February 14th of 2024, there were two groups of people that had a perceived provocation with one another that led to gun violence. The lack of, I guess, the respect for life, conflict resolution, emotional regulation, and just going straight to guns in a conflict is a problem in many cities in America. And I would say, you know, as we plan for those, we want to make sure that we have enough officers that are on the ground that can respond, that can immediately stop a threat, or in fact, if we see something brewing, we can de-escalate it. In this situation, we had a lot of officers right in the area where the shooting happened. At times, law enforcement is no longer a deterrent when someone decides to pull a trigger. You know, we've seen that time and again, not only in my city, but also across the United States. So just making sure that we are properly deployed and that we also have the training that you saw on display of officers running towards the threat when you have what you believe to be an active shooter.
Thank you, thank you. And Chief, very quickly, how do police department ensure that people are secure, not just at the main event, but also in areas where fans gather to watch the event at places like the Fan Fest, bars and restaurants? And how do we ensure that people are safe from the altercations that may erupt into these mass shootings or other major incidents? What's your thought on that?
I want to make a note of the Super Bowl parade and rally where shots were fired. You know, we had officers there at the ready and looking forward into planning for some of those. That's one of the challenges of those mass gatherings. It's an open air public event. We had the parade route secured. We had plenty of officers in and around the rally and along the route. But of course, if you don't have a perimetered secured entry, that is when you have some of those challenges in those public open air events. It's open to all, and I would say we had close to 1 million people in and around that area on February 14th in 2024. So looking forward, when you are looking at some of those events, whether that be Fan Fest or some of the matches that are going to take place at Arrowhead Stadium, there are levels and levels of security that will be in place to make sure that we stop any threat before it comes into the door. You know, we will continue to do that in and around some of the events. So we will also, not in addition to those officers that are on duty, we also will have off-duty officers that will be working in different venues to make sure that those areas are safe also.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Jimenez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question, I guess, to all of you. Start out with the Sheriff Cordero-Stutz. If you had a gunman that you identified as a threat, do you have the authority to stop that?
If you've identified an immediate threat that is going to take action, yes, we do.
Okay. If you had I guess sheriff or Sheriff Graves, if you had a vehicle coming towards a group of people and you know that it was their malintent, gunning it down, and you knew that they're going to run over a lot of people, do you have the authority to stop that vehicle?
Absolutely.
Okay. If you had somebody with a Molotov cocktail about ready to toss it into a group of people, Colonel Hodges, do you have the authority to stop that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And so, even though we still have a number of threats, our local law enforcement partners have the authority to stop that. Sheriff Cordero-Stutz, if you had a drone heading towards Hard Rock Stadium, unidentified, et cetera, and you don't know what the intent was, you have the authority to stop that?
With that information, sir, in a very, very limited way. Additionally, it's not just the authority, sir, it's a technology to be
I'm
able
saying
to
if you,
stop it.
even if you had the technology, I don't think you have the authority to stop it.
Correct. With
Okay.
that information, no, we would not. I would need a lot more.
And Chief Graves, same thing, right?
That's correct. We do not have the authority to down and drone.
And that's the problem. And I know that, my colleague, Representative Stubbe has introduced a bill to give you that authority. And we need to move that as quickly as we can, because frankly, that is the one thing that really, really worries me. Not only for these events, but also to protect some of our infrastructure. Can you imagine if we had a Ukraine-style attack on some of our major airports? What would that do to air travel? It would stop it in its track. And so our airports don't have that authority, our sheriffs don't have that authority, our local law enforcement doesn't have that authority, and we better give it to them quickly. Because if we have thought about it, they've thought about it too. And so we need to move on this as quickly as possible. There's two things we need to do. We need to share the technology, and we need to share the capability, and we also need to share the authority for you to do something about it. Because at the end of the day, you're the ones that are protecting your local communities. We come after the fact. We're the third tier. Local first, then state, and then the federal government. And so, would you agree with that assessment? And would the four of you agree with that assessment?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely, Congressman.
And now, Chief Stutz, if we, I'm sorry, Sheriff, if we had identified the technology, and we have some kind of, the federal government did some kind of certification, and we gave you the authority, would you wait for us to buy it, or would you buy it yourself?
Well,
The capability.
absolutely. I would make sure that I would purchase that capability, but we need the funds to be able to do so.
No, I got it. But at the
Yes.
end of the day, even if we didn't give you the funds, was it something that you would purchase to protect your community?
Of course, sir.
Okay. How about you, Chief Graves?
Absolutely.
Okay. And Colonel?
Yes, sir. I would just add an important point with funding, always generous from the federal government, but ensure that we include continuous training and maintenance.
Correct.
Those are often things that are overlooked. It's one-time training, one-time equipment. We need to protect that investment. More importantly, we need to continuously train as technology evolves, and we need to protect that investment.
And Mr. Davis?
Absolutely, Congressman. These are vital investments in the future. This is a pending threat.
And I agree. And sometimes we here in Congress think, well, gee, we have to fund everything. And I don't think we do. Okay? We may help you, all right? But I think we also need to give you the authority and give you access to the technology, and then have some kind of a, overall umbrella saying in order to utilize it, you must meet these standards. But I know that if I were still the mayor of Miami-Dade County, I'd make sure that my community is protected, because I have too many assets that are vital to my community and are vital to my economy, that to wait for the federal government to give me, what I need to do. And so, thank you for your testimony. I'm run out, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. I think that's going to be one of the greatest legislative takeaways of this hearing, is to have those authorities at the state and local level, your force multiplier. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Crane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you guys for coming today. This is a very important topic, examination of major security incidents at mass gatherings. Obviously, we've got a bunch of big events coming up in the United States within the next couple of years: the Olympics, World Cup, our 250th anniversary. And I'm aware that you guys, as law enforcement agents, you guys have been dealing with a bunch of threats for a very long time, to include vehicle ramming attacks, IEDs, improvised explosive devices, vehicle-borne IEDs, active shooters, cyber attacks. But the one that's keeping me up at night is the one that we keep talking about up here, and that's as warfare has continued to evolve, the drone threat, and I just don't think that we're ready. I've sat in on a bunch of these hearings. I've had classified hearings with some of our federal agencies, and what I can tell you is that we are not ready. And I'm going to do everything that I can to push for these authorizations that you guys need. But what I can tell you, and I know that you guys are probably aware of this, the federal government moves very slowly. And right now, this type of authorization, to my knowledge, has to go through 3 committees up here. I was interested, Colonel Hodges, in doing some research and finding out that in Louisiana, you guys just passed in June 2025 the We Will Act, which gives specifically trained state and local officers the authority to intercept and disable drones that pose a credible threat to public safety. I think that's fantastic. I hope that other states follow your lead. Have you guys had a chance to use any the provisions under that authorization yet, Colonel?
So in conjunction with our federal partners, prior to the passage of the law, we did it throughout the Sugar Bowl, Super Bowl, and Mardi Gras season. And now that we have the authorization, not at that moment, we're finalizing our policy and procedures and protocols for statewide compliance and ensure best practices. But I'm quite certain with the landscape of events that are coming this fall that we'll be putting that law to law enforcement benefit.
Have you guys had any pushback from the federal agencies who typically control the airspace and authorities with this state passed legislation?
No, sir, they've been very supportive, and we have a great working relationship with the federal partners, and I think that's why we were successful over the last several months, both in New Orleans, but really across the state. And because we were able to work with them and use their technology in conjunction with our technology, we feel that we have a skill set that's ready to hit the ground running as soon as we finalize our policy.
Chief Graves, have you talked to your state legislature and governor about passing something similar?
I'm not sure that we have anything in the works of passing something similar, but I will get with Colonel Hughes to try to get some of the language.
Sheriff, how about yourself?
We will be having that conversation in the upcoming legislature.
One of the recommendations that I've made up here is that with FIFA and every sporting event that we can, we try and make sure it happens in a dome for obvious reasons. I think that will drastically cut down the threat of drone attacks. But in doing some research, I think out of the 11 different stadiums that the FIFA World Cup is going to be held in, only 4 of them are in domes. And I believe, Colonel, you guys have one yourself. Is that correct?
Although we have a dome, we're not hosting a FIFA, but as you know, the watch parties and the other outdoor events that coincide bring a larger, sometimes crowd than what's inside the stadium or dome. So the drone is still a challenge, even though inside, like the game itself for the Super Bowl was everything indoors, the events throughout the week, as well as things that are associated with an event of this magnitude, FIFA will need outdoor coverage and TFRs throughout.
Colonel, do you know how long it took to get that piece of legislation passed?
Well, Governor Landry has been in just a little over 18 months, and it was a priority of his to have that done. We knew right before I believe your membership tried to get it done prior to 2025, but were unsuccessful. But we're very appreciative of the effort to move forward. I just wanted to add one comment about the drone with the detection and identification. Commissioner Davis talked about it, but that AI component, that technology, which used to take days, now takes just hours and sometimes minutes to identify who the operator of the drone is equally as important to mitigate or to return the drone or to take down the drone, because otherwise they're just going to go get another one and do the same thing. So I believe that's a technology an investigative tool that we should embrace in conjunction with the counter drone and other capabilities.
Thank you, Colonel.
Now recognize the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all of our witnesses here today, especially Colonel Hodges from my great state, Louisiana. Thank you for being here, sir. Thank you all for being here. In the early hours of New Year's Day, a 42-year-old U.S. citizen from Texas drove a rented Ford F-150 pickup truck into a crowd on Bourbon Street in the French Quarter. During the city's celebration, after crashing, he exited the vehicle and engaged in a shootout with law enforcement before being fatally shot by courageous New Orleans police officers who rushed to the scene. I want to take this moment to personally thank NOPD officers, Louisiana State Police, and other first responders for their heroic action that night. Sir, we cannot thank you and those other law enforcement agents enough. For while most were running away from the danger, you were running into it, and we appreciate you. This heinous act shattered the lives of victims and their families. It also exposed vulnerabilities in our urban security infrastructure and serves as a grim reminder of the evolving tactics of terrorism and terrorists and the potential for more catastrophic methods. Since that incident, I've worked with Representative Jimenez on the Department of Homeland Security Vehicular Terrorism Prevention and Mitigation Act, a critical piece of legislation designed to protect Americans from weaponized vehicles on our streets. In April, this committee passed this legislation as a proactive step towards safeguarding our citizens from the unimaginable. By enhancing our detection and response capabilities, we deter adversaries from contemplating heinous acts in our communities. I want to thank the committee for holding this hearing, and I look forward to continue to work on ways to prevent and deter future attacks on large-scale events. Colonel Hodges, you and I know too well that New Orleans is the greatest city in the world to host major sporting events. Visitors stay in hotels, walk to the Superdome, they leave and walk to the French Quarter and celebrate their team's victories, or to drink away the loss of losing to the Saints. Doesn't happen as often as we like, but it happens, and it's going to continue to happen more. This walkability, combined with culture, food, and hospitality of New Orleans, means that we're responsible for protecting countless mass gatherings throughout the year: Mardi Gras, Jazz Fest, French Quarter Fest, Essence Fest, bowl games, concerts. The list goes on and on. What can other cities learn from what we learned during this event while hosting World Cup matches, Olympics, and other events, and public violence is a threat? What can we share with the rest of the world of the great work that you did and how we prevent these measures going forward?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. I think it's the collaboration between all branches of law enforcement, or all levels, local, state, and federal. No one worried about who's getting the credit, just acting as a force multiplier. It doesn't matter who's in charge. It doesn't matter the badge or the uniform, just that we all work collectively and that we share the information. And I think we were able to do that with the help of many others who had challenges before us. We learned those lessons, and we had been working very closely throughout the year of 2024 prior to that New Year's Day, New Year's Eve attack. And we had such a strong relationship with our partners in law enforcement. It's no secret that the crime in the city of New Orleans, violent crime, was down 40% at the time of that attack. So when it did happen, and we all collectively were already there for the Sugar Bowl and New Year's Eve, everyone knew, all the leaders in the room, we knew our capabilities, our limitations, and we leveraged that. And because we worked and trusted one another so much, that's how we were able to
building trust and working together regardless of backgrounds, no fiefdoms, no one trying to take credit. You testified about the tragedy that struck New Orleans on New Year's morning. The terrorists had placed bombs in ice chests along Bourbon Street, which thankfully did not detonate. But video showed people on Bourbon Street looking at the coolers and not reporting them as suspicious. How can law enforcement effectively communicate to the public to not only see things, but to say what you see when you see them, report suspicious packages, but also let us know what you see so we can further protect? Louisiana constantly faces threat from Mother Nature. We know these things come, but those we have to deal with in many cases after the fact, before the fact. But these terrorist acts, if people see things, if someone had seen that ice chest that was just sitting there, that could have meant the difference in finding this and saving even more lives. Thankfully, those things were not detonated, but your people were on the ground. They were working with law enforcement. Having science and technology, being able to go back and trace this terrorist steps were helpful tools, correct?
Yes, sir. And I don't want to leave out the importance of building community trust and also the business partners. To your point, when they see something, to message it to us before it happens, whether they're a victim of a crime or they're a witness to a crime or they see something that's out of place, messaging that. And I think we've done a good job, and we have to earn the public's trust each and every day. But on that particular night, because we had all the resources and all the capabilities there, once we identified those two IED ice chests, we were quickly able to x-ray them and render them safe. And thankfully, to your point, that they weren't activated because the New Orleans police officers immediately engaged the driver of that truck, and he never made it to that destination. But the AI technology to rule out other potential threats, because we were still trying to play the game a few hours later, end up being delayed a day. But when you think about all the number of folks that were in town, and to reassure the community that was not only safe to come back to work, but safe to host that football game the following day, that trust is so important, as well as the technology. So I think sometimes we overlook that piece of the puzzle, but despite all of the technology and the number of officers, deputies, troopers, agents, if you don't have that public's trust and they're not coming to you with the information, we're not successful today.
Well, my time is far expired, and I thank you for your generosity. As I exit, I want to just again thank you for the great work that you all did to protect the citizens and visitors of New Orleans, and know that this committee will do everything in our power to arm you with the technology and tools to continue doing the great work. And Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Gentleman yields, and I recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Swalwell.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to each and every one of our witnesses today and the men and women, sworn officers, a part of your departments who are responsible for making sure that these events are successes. And as the son of a cop and a brother to two police officers and a former prosecutor myself, I know that although when the confetti comes down and the winning teams celebrate, we see the players who were a part of the victory, but we don't see the men and women in law enforcement who made sure that it was a safe and fun environment for everybody who witnessed or participated in it. So thank you for that. My state, Mr. Chairman, California, over the next couple years, we will host, obviously, in 2026, the World Cup. I think we have 8 games. Folks will see in February, Super Bowl 60, where the San Francisco 49ers will run an undefeated season and cap it off by winning the Super Bowl at home, something that has never happened, a perfect season and a victory in your own stadium. And of course, in 2028, the Olympics in Los Angeles, and we expect the Bay Area may host some of the cricket matches. So we are ready to work with law enforcement and support its needs. And Chief Graves, I know you're looking at me as I'm talking about the 49ers, and you're talking about the Chiefs, and congratulations to you all on that win over the 49ers. I was only surprised at the parade that you referenced that I didn't see the referees on the float, because they were a part of the victory too. But again, I do look forward to working with all of you coming up on this, and this committee wants to be responsive to what the funding needs are going to be. I want to ask first, Mr. Davis, you had referenced that the Fusion Center can be a force multiplier. You said to best safeguard against evolving threats, intelligence agencies must remain open to collaboration. If intelligence and analysis are eliminated or its capacity and capabilities to share intelligence with the Fusion Centers were reduced, would that make us safer? And what impact would reducing the Fusion Center capabilities have on the safety of our communities?
Sorry. I think it would be devastating, Congressman. The fusion centers have become such an integral part of everything that we do, especially on the prevention side of things. If there's any inhibition to continuing their work, the United States will not be as safe as it could be. I will tell you that the analysis that comes out of those centers every day is the first thing I read when I was the police commissioner in the city of Boston. It informed all of our decisions, and it helped us prevent serious crimes, not only at the terrorism level, but also at the other levels that we deal with day in and day out crime. So if that ability becomes impeded, either through a lack of funding or through the propensity of big organizations to snap back to old practices, which is what I fear after the changes that we made 12 years ago, whether or not there's a slow degradation of that cooperation. That has to be looked at all the time. And the preventive work that can be done in the fusion centers outweighs what they're able to do afterwards.
And Mr. Davis, I also want to credit you, obviously, for your work during the Boston Marathon bombings, but you had publicly credited at the time the Alameda County Sheriff's Office and its Urban Shield program, which had worked with and your department had trained with for many years. And that was a very public validation of a training program that has made our community and many communities safer. And I know the community appreciated at the time you crediting that program.
Truly, and it was funded by UASI grants that gave us the ability to prepare, and you fight the way you train.
That's right.
And that's what it gave us the ability to do.
Yeah, Chief Graves, it's only fair. I took a shot at the Chiefs. I do want to give you an opportunity to also respond to the question of reducing intelligence sharing capabilities between your office and the federal government and what impact that could have.
We have like I said earlier, we have a great historical, positive working relationship with our federal partners in Kansas City. That being said, the Fusion Center is an integral part of some of that communication. Not only do we work with them regularly, and I have no worries of getting notified of something that we should be aware of. We work side by side with them at Arrowhead Stadium during the football games, and there's been a couple things that have been taken care of and handled right away. It would definitely inhibit our ability to maintain that open line of communication of emerging threats.
Great, thank you. And Chairman, I yield back, and I thank the witnesses.
The gentleman yields, and I'll remind the gentleman from California, there's only one undefeated team in NFL history, the greatest team in NFL history, the 1972
But did they
Miami
win the
Dolphins.
Super Bowl?
The Miami Dolphins, 1972. So, probably before your time, yes. Okay. The one thing I guess that we learned from this hearing is that we need to move on authorizations. My colleague from Arizona was absolutely right. It takes too long for us here in Congress to push the legislation that's actually needed. This is a priority, giving the authorizations for you to do something about unmanned aerial systems. And so I want to thank the witnesses for their valuable testimony and the members for their questions. The members of the task force may have some additional questions for the witnesses, and we would ask the witnesses to respond to these in writing. Pursuant to Committee Rule 7E, the hearing record will be held open for 10 days. Without objection, this task force stands adjourned.